And today I have with me my friend and my first guest, Arthur Kwan. Hi, Arthur.
Hello.
Can you tell the viewers where you are right now?
So I'm in my little studio apartment in New York City. It's been a rough couple months out here, especially. So it's good to have any kind of social interaction. Has been healthy for me. So thank you for doing this.
That's okay. It's a bit formal for you. Yeah. The topic today that we're going to be talking about, and thanks so much for participating, is going to be about unemployment. As you know, both you and I have been unemployed for quite some time. I being a little over 7 months, and you sort of how long have you been unemployed for?
Haven't had a full-time job since August of last year, so about a year now. I
Okay.
did like some consulting stuff, but like very short term for like weeks at a time. I think you can say it's been about almost a year, but I haven't
Okay.
had like a consistent, full-time gig.
I've been almost half a year, well, slightly over half a year, and I haven't done any consulting work or had any sort of income flow in. So I've just been chilling really hard.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we're here to talk about, right? How
So
our experiences have been, and we can compare notes and see.
yeah, see how we're going. Because I wanted to like first of all, from my end, like I mean, ever since I've been let go, I've been trying to rediscover myself and also try to figure out what I should be doing during this time, how I can be productive. There's obviously feelings of being a little lost and depression kicking in, but at the same time, I've used this time to try to see how I can heal myself and better myself, and hopefully that would be able to inspire other people listening if they're going through the same thing. And I'm sure like during this kind of like economy, global economy that we're facing right now, and with the pandemic, there are people that are out of jobs, and they might also need a little inspiration or something they can use for themselves too. So we'll start from there. Like, what have you been up to, Arthur, in the last year, other than pro bono work?
I've been traveling quite a bit, well, at least initially. So, I should probably offer a disclaimer right
Hmm.
away, saying like I don't think anyone should probably do what I did. Like
Okay.
it's almost like a cautionary tale of like you know, don't listen to this guy, like he obviously made a lot of bad decisions. And no, I'm just kidding. But like, I was in the corporate America, just like grinding away for since I graduated. We went to college together. Since we graduated, it was 15 years ago. Just
Yeah.
been corporate grind day after day, and I've known for a while that I was getting burnt out, and it wasn't something that I really wanted indefinitely, but it just kept going, and this one day I said, I didn't have a plan, so that's not good. I just said, I'm done with this, and I left and I started traveling. I always think back to like I don't know if you're a Tarantino fan, but like
Yeah,
Pulp
I am.
Fiction, where Samuel L. Jackson's in a diner having a muffin, and he's has a moment of clarity, and he's just like, "I'm gonna go wander the earth." And then
Okay.
John Travolta's like, "Oh, they have a word for that. It's a bum. That's what you're gonna be, a bum." I think Travolta was kind of right. Like, going into something like this, I think without a plan. Like I was traveling, it was fine. I got to see a lot, but I didn't really have a plan of what I was doing.
So you just kind of
You know,
quit, uh, and then figured fate will take you to wherever you need to go next. Is that what your thinking
Pretty
was?
much. I was just hoping something was going to click, right? Because, like even before I quit, I was thinking like, what could I do? What else, could I pursue? And it just wasn't coming to me. And I always blamed it on just being so busy all the time, working these crazy hours and being exhausted, that I just didn't have the time to reflect and really figure out what I wanted to do. And I thought, just by quitting my job and having all this time, I was going to be able to rejuvenate, and something will hit me and I'm going to be motivated to go on to something else,
Yeah.
and start like a new chapter type of thing. But that did not really happen. I mean, like I said, the traveling was fine. It was a lot of fun actually, but nothing really hit me, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I think that's the fairy tale that I had because I hear about these like I remember I think Murakami. He's like one of my favorite writers. He was, I think, in an interview he said he decided he was going to become a writer when he was just suddenly at like a baseball game, the bat hit the ball and the crack of the bat hitting the ball, just something clicked in his mind. And he's like, oh, I'm going to start writing and I'm going to be like, and then he became this like famous writer or whatever. I
Mm.
just assumed something like that, like serendipitous thing was going to happen to me, like when I'm traveling, going on these like ventures, but didn't happen, right? So I could say for the most part, I've been a bum for the like long story short, been a bum for the past year. How
Like
about you?
first month or two, I was scrambling to find a job. It's kind of like what most people want to do, try to get back into the flow, and then just really worried and conscious on my CV that there's going to be a larger and larger gap, and they can't explain what's going to happen. Then COVID obviously took into full effect early this year, so really no one was looking. No role around my seniority, and also nothing that was paying at the same level. So, and there's also a bit of pride too, because I wanted to pick up a role, obviously, that I would say if I were to reach back out to my ex-colleagues and say like, hey, yeah, I actually landed on my feet pretty well, but like that didn't happen. I guess I have the benefit of because I'm married, I have a wife who's constantly there. So she supported me and she was like very supportive of whatever I wanted to do. And she was also there to sort of give me alternatives and give me feedback of what I was good at. So like with that Murakami reference that you made, if I had something I was interested in, she'd be like, you know what, you're pretty good at this or that. Like maybe you should try explore that a bit further. And then that would kind of inspire me to think about, oh, what if I did try do that a little bit more. So here we are with the podcast.
Yeah.
So I mean, ultimately, the things that I love are all creative. They're in the arts. I probably like reviewing and admiring the arts more than I like executing on it. That's why I thought I would do something a bit more meaningful if I couldn't find a job that really pay the same. At least find something that could hopefully be low cost, maybe in the future cover those costs, and then do something meaningful that would help me, but also help other people like me. So that's the genesis of this podcast, really, and that's what we're trying right now. Although at the same time, I've been taking it really easy because I figured now is a good time to take it easy. And the time just bleeds from days into weeks, into months really quickly because I don't have a schedule. So I'll wake up late and then I'll sleep late. I'll play more video games. I'll just watch more YouTube clips because I don't have a schedule. And the next thing you know, like it's the day's gone, right? And then you're like, oh, what happened to the day? It's like a time capsule. You're suddenly in some sort of limbo, which I don't actually hate per se. Like it's not like something immediately. The impact isn't immediate. It's not like something where you're feeling it every moment, like there's tension that you're not every minute that you're not unemployed. But it's a very slow, long burning kind of feeling that like the longer you go, and then the more you look back at how long that time has been, where you haven't been doing anything productive, you feel more and more like you're not achieving what you should be achieving. Like you have better expectations for yourself, and like what you should be doing as a man, as a capable person.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the points. I think we all feel that way now. So like you said, the days are just flying by. It's just hard to know what you should be doing when you don't have something that
Mm,
you have to be doing, right?
mm,
Um, when I had a job, I had responsibilities. Generally, I'm a pretty responsible person. So even if I don't like what I'm doing or really into what I'm doing, if I know
mm,
that's my job, I'm going to put in the efforts and just really put my all into it. And when you don't have that anymore, which I didn't realize, it's hard to find that motivation. I hear you. I feel like, but no, but like I told you earlier, like just, doing this podcast thing, I mean, at least you're putting yourself out there doing something. If at the very minimum, like just me and you talking, almost like therapy, like free therapy, right? Like I don't have to pay. I can't afford a therapist right now. You probably can't afford a therapist. So it's
Yeah.
just like therapeutical just to go through this stuff, and I try to be optimistic. I feel like we're still relatively young, so
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Something will happen.
For me, and like for the society I live in right now in Asia too, mental wellness isn't really taken that seriously. I think everyone kind of knows that. Depression can sink in pretty quickly, even when you don't think you have it. But the truth is, like when you have a conversation with somebody, it does help a lot more. So you should never do it alone. I think it certainly helps because when you talk to somebody, you do want to kind of project the best version of you and what you should be doing, and then you kind of realize that you probably should follow through with what you're saying.
Especially like this day and age, right? Like it's just I think everyone's got their own demons, right?
Yeah,
I don't know this so like I'm too old for this whole social media thing, but I feel like people it can really fuck you up like in a really bad way seeing all this stuff and
I mean
it
like
just doesn't
negative
make
news or on your social media feed or what kind of stuff.
you assume like people are like living these glamorous lives and things.
Yeah,
I don't know for sure, but like
yeah.
do
I
any
think I'm contributing to that cycle because obviously I would post things of things that make me happy, and I've learned that if you post happy memories on your social media, well, from memories, more from my own memories, when you go back and look at them, you'll obviously have more positive memories. But at the same time, like you're saying, like if you see other people posting happy things, which obviously you only post happy things on social media, then you're going to amplify the feelings that, oh, you're not having such a great life as other people, right?
that's my general feeling. I don't know for sure just because I don't
Yeah,
partake in it.
yeah,
But I feel like it's just harder, just from a mental health perspective these days, to really feel content. At the end of the day, I mean, our problems are first world problems that, I mean, not to minimize the problems, but just to say, like, maybe take a step back and just appreciate some very simple things that we take for granted.
yeah. No, I hear you on that. I feel you on that, and that's why I say to myself too, like, could be worse. There are people who rely on a stable and constant flow of income for their businesses to stay afloat. People in F&B, food and beverage, they're probably screwed right now with the coronavirus happening. Like there are other people who are way worse off in economic situations and countries and societies. But we're all on a different scale here. And I guess like for us, like we're probably closer to where we are in society and what our first world problems are. We still need to tackle them because
And there's still
maybe,
problems, and they're
yeah,
serious because like it can, like you said, it can just spiral, right? Like
yeah.
the days become weeks, and then the depression it just can turn into something that's devastating.
Yeah, I mean, it could spiral pretty quickly, especially like at one point in March. I think I was, because we were in quarantine, because like I was still reeling off of heavy drinking, because back at Morgan Stanley, we would just drink quite a lot, on weekdays after work. Instead of hitting the bar, I was just buying a bottle of gin and mixing my own gin and tonic at home. But the problem is you can mix really strong cocktails at home. And you can mix like at one point I was downing a bottle of Terraquid gin a day, and like I would just drink and then just kind of get sleepy, fall asleep, but then have really shitty sleep. Like I'd sleep for like maybe 3 hours or something, knocked out, but then wake up with a kind of like a really shitty feeling. Not so much a hangover because you don't really get a hangover over drinking gin too much, but more of a feeling like you can't go back to sleep, but you're dead tired.
So
So
how did you get past that? Are you still in that? I don't know. Like, are you still?
I've stopped drinking. At one point, I was just like, yeah, this is ridiculous. I keep drinking, and there's no good to that. But plus, like for me, a good reminder was like my workout routine. Like, yeah, gyms were closed that time too, so it was tough. But then like as soon as gyms were kind of open up again, and then I was thinking, fuck, like I got this belly fat. Like I should really stop drinking so much. Like otherwise, what's the point of working out? So like the exercise kind of pulled me away from going too overboard. But like alcohol is just not a good drug anyway in general. I mean, it's it's bad for your health, but also it's a downer. Like when you're drinking, it doesn't improve your mood that much. it just kind of makes you less and less cautious. So then you don't have to think so much. Like you don't have to be so hyper aware all the time of things you should be doing. So it just kind of gives you an excuse, an out to just like not do the things you're supposed to do.
Right.
Right. Not be as productive as you could be in the evening, for example. So there was that. You
Right.
know, I still try to keep the schedule of like trying to stay awake when Aiko's awake and then try to go to bed when Aiko goes to bed because she has a full-time job, even though she's working from home. But it's hard to like keep tabs on yourself. You know what I mean? When you have no real incentive to. It's like it's you
I mean,
versus
that's been
infinity.
the story, since I've been unemployed, right? I think the importance of a routine can't be overstated.
I mean, for myself, I think like I work better in a team and working with people. So if I didn't get my ass up to wake up a slightly earlier and then push myself to, adjust this microphone and have a podcast with you, I probably would have pushed this off until tomorrow, or God knows when. So I need to like make those commitments and promises and then try to follow through for them because I know that if someone else is waiting on me, then I'll commit. I can't let people down. I can let myself down, but it's hard for me to let other people down.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing with me, right? Like you have Aiko, you're married, you have obligations to somebody else.
Mhm.
I'm single, I live alone. I think that's even harder, right? Because you really have I really don't need to do anything. No one's relying on me for support, for any kind of support, emotional, so I'm just kind of navigating through this thing on my own. And I'm in a very fortunate position where like, I don't, I'm not like desperate to survive. So you just become this kind of like potato. And I hate myself for it, but I think over time that's what it's come to, especially once this pandemic hit and it hit New York really hard. So once the traveling stopped, for the past I've been back for 3, 4 months, just complete lockdown on my own. I try to be optimistic because I mean, what's the alternative, right? Like I try to think about things that'll be good.
What about your savings? Like, you still good on savings right now, or like, how long have you sort of projected how long it'll take before you run completely dry, or are you like still pretty good for the rest of your life?
No, that's the thing, right? I feel like I'm not good for the rest of my life, but I'm also good for an extended period of time.
Like a few years?
Yeah, probably, but I don't spend much, right? Like I don't
Yeah,
really like fancy. I don't do fancy. I mean, you know me
yeah,
for so long.
yeah. You're not material.
I don't spend any money. There's no vice for me
Yeah,
that. So from a financial standpoint, I feel like I'm okay just because my expenses are so low. I'm good for a while, so I'm grateful for that. But then also, it's like I feel like nothing's going to change unless I'm desperate, right? Like if I'm like I almost need to be in dire straits, right?
yeah.
For some shit to happen. Like I feel like I need to be like desperate or like struggling, and then like I'll feel that motivation to actually. So I don't know if this is like the worst of both worlds, right? Like if you had enough forever, it's almost like you're fine. You don't have to worry. You just kind of like you just do
Hmm.
you. And I'm not at that point. But then also I'm not like struggling, right? So I don't really have that incentive to be like hustling. We're also older, right? Like I don't know if that's just an excuse, but I don't know if
That factors in.
you're not.
Yeah,
I'm not as idealistic as I once was. I think in your 20s, I felt like I could do anything and everything if that I wanted.
yeah,
And then over time, you kind of acknowledge like there's a kind of self-awareness that happens, and what you're capable of and what you're. So I'm still trying to figure it all out. I mean, to be honest, like I don't know the right answers, but just trying to be open-minded.
yeah. I feel you, man. I mean, like, for myself, I feel the same way. And like I said earlier, it's only when talking to other people do I feel like I'm moving a little bit more forward. Otherwise, for some reason or not, I'm quite content with myself. Like, if I didn't have a wife that depended on me, I would probably, if I looked at my savings and someone told me, you now have enough savings to go sit on a farm, play video games, and then you're good to go, I'd probably be like, you know what, that sounds like a very tempting out. Like, that sounds very tempting. Like,
That's
but
some, yeah, that,
but the fact that now that I have a wife and like I want a family, and we have expenses that come with those like wants. I gotta make money and I gotta do something, right? And going back to that, like maybe it is just talking to people and then working with someone, even if it's like a personal project, like a podcast. Maybe that's how you move a bit forward. I love creative writing. That's what I know. So other than doing podcast stuff, I think one of the ventures I'd like to go into is writing some fiction, something like that, something that might be fun. I'll think about doing that. But if I have a
Just don't think
collaborator,
too much. Just
yeah,
do it. Like I feel like the problem with me is that is too much thinking and not enough just
yeah. What do you love to do, Art? I mean, like, what's something that you know you're good at that you love to do, except for playing Age of Empire? What else is there that you think
no,
is,
that's a problem, right? I'm just
yeah?
not not good at anything. Just mediocre.
What are you passionate about? Like,
I mean, the thing with me is that I have a lot of interest and really no passions, right? So
mm,
not really passionate about any one thing. The next phase of what I'm going to do is going to be, it's got to be something I have somewhat of an interest in. Whether I join a company, it's something that I see value in what they do or their business or their products or something that I feel has value and something that like, because in the past, for the past, I was just going through the motions. I didn't really buy into like I didn't really like if I can't do it myself, I would want to be in a organization that I actually, you know,
feel like you're contributing or like you're making a real
yeah,
impact?
like I
Yeah.
want them to do well. I actually appreciate what they're doing. And like if I was like super talented and I'd be a writer, I'd be a musician, but these are, dreams that I think a lot of people kind of have, right? Like when they're,
Yeah, no, the truth is no one is super talented at at one particular thing. You're talking about 1% of the population who are like celebrities that are really fantastic at something, you know? Like most of us are just mediocre at everything. It's just that, so you got to start from that point.
right. So I don't want to be delusional, right? Like if I could be delusional and be like, I want to be some crazy rock star
Yeah.
or something, and that's just not. It's never going to happen, right? You still go for it, though. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think when you're younger, you try, you try whatever. But at some point, I feel like you get to a point where the idealism and the realism,
Let
you
me
have
tell you,
to.
mediocre rock star, mediocre podcaster, like just go for mediocre because you know what? We're all mediocre. So like
Like I
it's gonna
said,
be
this is free therapy, man. Come on,
yeah, no. Well,
don't
it's
knock your own podcast.
I'm not. I'm just saying like we're all in this together. Like if there's someone listening, then you know, we're not alone. That's all that matters. And if you're I might be a mediocre writer too, but maybe there are people that are like-minded like me who like that stuff. And if not, it's really low stakes. This is like the low stakes
Well,
buy-in.
that's the beauty of it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like as long as it brings you joy in some way, it's and the cost,
It's not yeah,
not
it's
gonna
worth
like
the risk.
it's not even
Hey,
a risk. It's almost just beneficial, even if nothing comes out of it. It's just like you try something and
well, I see it as like beautiful because I get to keep that product, you know. I made product, my research product, and once I was let go, can't take any of that shit back home with me. It's no longer mine because it never was in the beginning. You know, I just executed on it.
right,
And like there are skill sets that I have that I know I'm good at for me to have had that job. But then when I got out of that business and I want to start my own business, I realized I absolutely hate admin. I hate operational stuff. Like that's the one thing that's really holding me back from setting up a business. I'd be super gung ho on how to market it and sell it, but I would absolutely abhor the paperwork and everything else that goes along with it, the admin, the operational, the legal side of it. Like so from that angle, like I know I'm not whole.
but no one is right. No one's. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, no one is. I'm the
well, unless
same way.
they're really driven, and like of course I admire those kind of people that like feel that they absolutely want to achieve one specific thing. Like that's good on them. You know, like they have such a drive that they're willing to learn all the crappy shit that happens on the side just so they can get to that main objective. But when you have like a wishy-washy kind of like objective and you just and that other stuff kind of blocks you from getting there, then you know that's most of the people. I want something that pays the bills, but ultimately is more fulfilling. But at the same time, if I don't feel like there's a stable flow of income coming in, I will feel like I'm not responsible. And like for a lot of young men who grow up in a society where they believe they got to be, capable and the breadwinners, and there's no source of income coming in, just kind of makes you feel like there's you're not really fulfilling your duties as a man, feeling. So that's just how we sort of like ingrain into our brains, and that's how I sort of feel about if I don't have any income coming in, I'll feel uneasy. That's the slight dread I have. How did you get into accounting? How did you get into finance? Like for me, it's because Hong Kong's a financial hub, so the most lucrative jobs were related to that, and then there's society pressure too from your family, but also society to get into something that's more finance related versus something creative. Like how did you get into that? Was it similar, or did you just fold into the
I think it's like Asian. I mean, I think the Asian kind of culture has a lot to do with it, right? Like, I don't know how it is growing up in Hong Kong. My parents didn't even finish high school. They're immigrants here. So they worked hard. They worked multiple jobs, and then like they send you to school, and like ideally I would be a doctor, lawyer, or whatever
yeah,
Asian stereotype is, but I just wasn't capable of that. So it's like the second or third tier is kind of like accounting and finance. So it's just, I mean, just the culturally, that's what you're brought up to. It's just very practical, pays the bills, you can have a good living, and so you just kind of defaulted into that because I wasn't ever so moved by anything that like drove me to
yeah,
something that was creative. I mean, I think, just growing up in the house in the mold did not really allow for it, right? Like so much. So I wonder how it would have been if I was like grew up in an environment where it was almost encouraged, where you just pursue whatever your interests are. And
yeah.
I didn't have that growing up, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel the same way as you do on that front. Sometimes I blame myself for being too apathetic as well. Like when I was in high school, it's like, oh, what do you want to do in university? Oh, I don't know. I'll just choose these subjects I'm good at. And then like because I was apathetic about it, I didn't really think like, oh, I really need to do this subject or go into this degree. I'll just go with the flow because like I have no better ideas. Yeah, and society expects me from this, so I might as well just go with it. With the benefit of hindsight, maybe I would have pushed myself a bit harder, or if I had talked to somebody who was really more inspiring to me at the time, and he or she said like, yes, you should do this, and I'll support you completely. Maybe I would have done that. But
Right. I think even if you fail, I feel like that's a good experience to have. I feel like yeah, I just had no one, right? I just kind of had to like whatever your parents think, and it's just like you had no kind of alternative way.
like I always tell people, it would have been great if my high school career counselor actually did their job. Like if they actually knew what you should be studying, like maybe the first question they ask you is like, what really excites you right now? What do you think you can do? And then give you a list of careers from most lucrative to least lucrative, like related to your passions there, and then try to inspire you to go after them. Perhaps that would have been a different conversation. But it's because there's too many kids. I don't know if most counselors would give a shit to everybody or even like know what to advise in, and just left up to you, and you're just a kid. You don't know any better. It's hard to sort of pick up your path from there. But it's never too late, I suppose. Like if we're looking at that angle, like so I mean for myself, for you, or for anyone, like if we're not into the material stuff and we're okay with sort of risking it to do a venture that interests us more on a personal level, then I think we should probably go after that niche, right? Yeah, that's why I was just asking you if you had like a dream career. Like if you scratched all the education and work experience aside on your CV, and someone asked you, if God asked you like, what would you want to do tomorrow, and you'll be in the best position to do it, like what kind of business or what kind of occupation do you think you'd want to be?
Yeah, I think it's got to be something creative. I think there's this just an intrinsic for all human beings to want to create something, right? Yeah, I would love to be able to write music. Music probably saved my life more than once. Like it's just
Mm.
something that's very personal to me, and that's why I feel like it's good to talk to you. I feel like I need someone to kind of like, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Like for me, just on my own, I find a million reasons why I should not try something. I'm at the age where I'm at now, and I'm still kind of like always finding reasons not to try. And part of it is just being lazy in general, but also like I'm
Mm,
maybe afraid to fail. I don't know what the reason
yeah.
is. But I think as you get older, you start caring less about, for me at least. I don't know how it is for you or for other people. I don't really think too much about what other people or how I'm going to be perceived.
I think when you grow up, you realize haters gonna hate, and I think it is tied to sort of expectations of yourself and failure. If I take drawing, for example, I like to draw,
Hmm.
but at the same time, when I compare myself to the talented people out there, the 1%, the top tier people, we're not like stupid. We know what is good art and what's bad art and what's mediocre art. If I'm just
Hmm.
drawing mediocre art with all my heart, I can only reach that mediocre level. I'll
Right.
know when I compare to myself to those top artists. There's no way I can sort of like proudly say, "Oh, this is on par with them. I should be getting this job or I should be pursuing this career." Right?
Right.
Maybe the truth is, if you practice more and you actually studied more and you paid attention to like art classes or drawing classes, you bought the right equipment, you paid attention to certain techniques, maybe I could get to that level.
Hmm.
But at this point right now, I'm not, and because of that, like maybe that's just stopping me from pursuing that because I didn't have the innate prodigal talent to do that.
That's the thing I distinguish between like I'm interested in something versus like I want to like eat, sleep, and breathe
Yeah.
something. But you know, interest can lead to something.
Well, the truth
So
is, I don't know if we'll ever find that one thing that makes us want to eat, sleep, and breathe that certain thing, unless we get the ball rolling. Like if I told you right now the ball's rolling super fast right now, we're making these hit jams one after another, you'd be like, yeah, yeah, I'm totally on for it. But then like getting the ball rolling at that point, that's
yeah, I don't know. Who
that's a
knows?
grind.
After this episode, you might get like email from Spotify,
All right.
a contract deal for I don't know.
Yeah. I'd much rather, yeah, I don't know. Like it's great to have those dreams. I don't actually expect them at this point, but like I know it's gonna be rough at the start and then it'll smooth out. And if it goes somewhere, as long as you stick to your niche, you'll probably hit your demographic. Like I said, I think what I've learned a lot about is failure is a good thing. Failing means that you can improve yourself
I agree,
and get
100%.
better. Yeah, you don't learn without failing. And whilst it's very humbling and it's very traumatic, those experiences are what make us stronger and better. People who are enlightened are the ones that have probably suffered some great, well, not great, but like has suffered some trauma or unfortunate things happen to them. Otherwise, the entire street would be full of enlightened people. You'll always meet those people who have never had bad shit happen to them, but maybe those guys are the less fortunate ones because they haven't really learned anything. They don't really appreciate
Yeah,
maybe.
I agree. I mean, I feel like everyone needs some kind of adversity to like you don't really appreciate shit unless you've been through some shit. You know, I'm going through that now. I'm still trying to figure everything out and I'm not feeling great, but I feel like once I get through this,
Hmm.
I'm going to be better for it. All the stuff I'm dealing with now, all the uncertainty and just not knowing what the heck I'm doing, right? But once I move on from it, I feel like I'm going to grow from it. Yeah, just people should not feel like it's all bad. It's like something good is going to come out of the things you're going through. And, that's life, right? I would not want to go through a life that's just easy peasy and just like nothing ever changes. You're just like always never have doubts and just like, what's the point? At least that's how I feel. I don't know
That's how
how,
everyone feels. I think everyone needs a little bit of challenge in the end of the day. Like it's the same with your career too. You need to be a little bit of a challenge. You want to be the big fish in a small pond, but not so big that you dominate and you have nothing else to do. There's nothing that keeps you to that lets you grow. You want to be that kind of like 75% quartile. You want that extra 25% above you so you have somewhere to go. Because if you're at the top, what's the point? You know, I mean,
It's all relative, is what you're saying, right? I feel.
yeah, it's relative. We're all in a range here. You know, I'm a mediocre artist. You know, you're mediocre like a music writer. And then you have the upsides, you have lots of way to go. So you have plenty of up
Thank you
to
for
improve
saying that.
yourself. Yeah. I
Go
mean,
for
mediocre in the best sense of the word. And at the same time, we're talking about life being, yeah, life is great because it's not just happiness. People probably say, oh, what, you know, you see all those memes and like things that always promoting like, oh, doesn't make you happy. Everything supposed to make you happy, like supposed to be happy 24 hours a day. The truth is, I like being sad sometimes. I like being angry sometimes. The human experience is so full of the whole range of emotions that like if we weren't be able to experience all of that, how do we appreciate everything around us? If I was happy 24 hours a day, I'd probably be, you know,
you wouldn't be human.
you would know that the cyst in my brain is probably grown. Like you probably asked me to get checked out or something. Like there's like John, now's the time for you to get another CT scan. There's so many emotions that are available to us. It's a good thing to have. In general, I think when people say like you have to be happy all the time, that's not true. I think the opposite actually. Life is kind of actually about suffering. And if you see a lot of religious, and I'm not religious at all, but like you would see a lot of religious philosophies too. Like a lot of it has to do with suffering. And why is that a good thing? I mean, have you seen the movie Manchester by the Sea? Have you seen that
I
movie?
did not know.
Okay, well, anyway, in that movie, Casey Affleck, Ben Affleck's brother, who's the protagonist, the entire movie is him being mad depressed. Early on, you find out that he accidentally, I don't know if it was him, but there was an accident at home and his kids were caught in the fire at home and they died. And then he divorces his wife, and his wife like goes on to marry someone else, and he's just by himself all the time. And then like at the end of the movie, things don't get better. They just
Mhm.
kind of like shit and they're stuck there.
Yeah.
Then like some people who watch the movie just walk away thinking like, oh, I didn't really enjoy that movie. There's no uplifting, hopeful message there. And then other people go away saying, yeah, it's a great movie. And they can't really put into words, but I thought about it, it's like maybe I enjoy that movie, not just as an introvert, but maybe because it kind of teaches you that sometimes life doesn't get any better. In fact, it could get even worse, right?
Mhm.
And and we talked about how you can rise from that and learn from that. And whilst it could get even more worse, like absolute is it absolute hell? No, if it's not absolute hell, have you done everything you can in your own power to make it less miserable? Because if you've done all you can to make life as good as you can with the cards you dealt, you're still suffering, but maybe it's not absolute hell. And in that way, maybe you still have room to grow. There's still reason to live. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I see it. Like life could just never be as rosy ever again, but you just kind of have to. Sometimes you just got to keep living because that's the human experience.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the whole thing. Yeah. Now I got to go watch that movie, but I feel like no, it hits the nail on the head, right? It's just look, if I was about to die, looking back on my life, I would see a lot of value in the struggles that I've been through, right? Like, if it's just all happy-go-lucky, I don't think I would appreciate life as much as if I had to go through some stuff and not even overcome it. I don't know, but maybe I'm just saying that because I'm coming from a place where it's, like, I don't know, like maybe it's so good to be someone who's just like always happy from day one to, I can't speak for them, but like for me, without the struggle, without adversity, it's hard to appreciate anything good that comes, right? Things are just so out of your control sometimes. Like life kind of throws things at you and things just happen, without seeing the bad, you can't really appreciate the good.
Man, I know like ignorance is bliss, but if I met somebody who never sort of had bad things happen to them and couldn't really relate, I mean, I couldn't relate to someone who's completely happy all the time. Like, there's no way I can relate to them. So maybe, yeah, maybe good for them, but at the same time, probably not good for them. Like, probably they feel like they're on easy mode and they've led an unfulfilling life. Who knows? Then
Yeah, I don't
again, like
know.
it's rare, yeah, to find someone like that. It's really
But
hard.
maybe that's perfect, like maybe that's like how society should be. I don't know. Like I can't, like I feel like I don't know what it's like in someone else's shoes, right? Like I just know what it's like in my shoes. Like someone who's just always happy from day one, maybe that's what everyone should be striving for.
I don't think you and I would accept that though. It's kind of like Neo in the Matrix. Like everything is too like gung ho. Like like something's
Right.
wrong.
That's
We both love things in life so much, the entire experience of living, everything in it so much, and we appreciate it so much that you can't really love one thing more than the other one. But the fact that we appreciate that experience in life, I think, is the one thing that's keeping us or me from, let's say, suicidal thoughts in dark times. Like there's something else that keep us going. Like there's always got to be a reason to do that. That, and I have people that depend on me, like Aiko. Like I told you before about my previous boss who committed suicide, and
Yep.
he was down. I mean, same kind of like career, financial services. His girlfriend left him. His brothers were kind of like asking him for money all the time. He took coke. He drank a lot. He got fired from his job because of the alcohol. And then after that, I never really fully recovered from it. Had long-term depression, but didn't really seek treatment for it. And it was a long, drawn-out suicide. He planned his suicide over 6 months. Took care of all his bills and stuff. Wrote to his parents, told them like, "Mom, I'm okay. I paid for all the bills. Don't worry." And jumped off his balcony. Like, how do you get to that point? I mean, drugs is probably one thing, but long-term depression and all of that, like that was
Yeah.
just a series of catastrophic failures from everyone around him. If someone was there for him, maybe if his girlfriend wasn't constantly kind of manipulating him or pushing him in the wrong direction, if she just said like, just keep living for me, otherwise I'll be devastated, maybe he would have kept living, right? Maybe. I don't know. He was in a very dark place and no one was supporting him or giving him the attention he needed. He got more reckless, and I didn't recognize those symptoms. But as he got more reckless, he like lashed out at people around him, including myself, and that's why I kind of didn't talk to him afterwards either.
Right.
And then in hindsight, obviously, I know why he acted that way. But then at that time, I was just thinking, fuck this guy. Now, I'm just thinking, if I knew what I knew now, like it makes sense when you get reckless, because reckless people, they hurt those them around them, but they also hurt themselves too. That's what he was going through. Even now, like I'm very conscious of trying not to brood and sit by myself and not feel sorry for myself, but turn my negative feelings about being unemployed and blaming it not just on myself, but my employers. I don't want to, like, the worst thing I can do right now is turn those feelings into hate and resentment, because the longer I sit and brood and turn, maybe it's a way of getting over it, but it's not a healthy way. Like if I turn around and keep thinking, oh, I hate those guys who did this to me, they deserve karma, or maybe deserve something horrible happened to them.
Mm.
Maybe I deserve more of those feelings, like very dangerously similar to the path of somebody who, I mean, I'll compare it to, like, let's say the Columbine kids, right? Like, I don't want
Yeah.
to compare myself to those guys, like, where you just sit and brood in your basement all day
Right.
because
Right.
kids did this to you and you're
Right.
bullied, and then you say, fuck society, fuck everybody, and that hate turns into something perverse.
Right.
I don't want that kind of, I don't want hate, resentment, and those kind of things to corrupt me. Those are things that are dangerous and very realistic when you're by yourself. It comes back down to talking to people, or being around a network of people that make you feel like you're not alone. I am introverted. I like being alone. I like that time, but at the same time, I can recognize how it's a problem if you've left with a really bad taste in your mouth. What happened. You can see how I can hold like resentment in my heart, and it's really hard to let that go.
Oh, of course. Overall, right? Like I feel like I'm very fortunate that I have gone through some kind of very personal injustice in my life. But even like the small injustices that have happened to me, it's affected me probably more than anything else, right? I always have like the most empathy for people that have gone through an experience where they experience something that's like really fucked up. Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from, and I feel like more people need to see that just to have that sense of what if this shit happened to me? How do I deal with it, right? Like a lot of people tend to write things off because it didn't happen to them.
Hmm.
I think that happens to everyone. I think that's just a natural thing. Like you hear about all this stuff happening, but like you said, on a more personal level, I feel like it's a slippery slope where you can really spiral into some very negative place. How do you avoid that? I haven't been there, so I can't really tell. But I mean, it sounds like you're dealing with that.
Most men that suffer these kind of feelings and whatever I'm going through, and not just men but women too. Like it's important to note that it starts with talking to somebody, even if it goes against your best interest. Introvert feelings to do that. It's a good thing to talk to someone about it and let those feelings out. But also know that these things happen and you will get better for it. So that's just the whole part of the human experience. Just kind of like live it. That and talking, being in a
Hmm.
safe space, those are all positive things you can do for
Hmm.
yourself. How to be productive, just just get a little like don't like we're talking about earlier about like being on the scale of being a mediocre artist and the top artist. Don't compare yourself to the top artist. Just compare yourself to yourself yesterday. And if you can incrementally improve from yourself from yesterday, that's already a good benchmark. Don't compare yourself to the others because that's just incomparable. There's too many
Right.
factors going on. I think we're good on the time actually for this episode. I think we might have gone over a little bit,
You're gonna have to
but
edit.
thanks for doing this with me, bro. On a positive note, because anyone who's going through these kind of things, and maybe there are people that have way worse situations than we do financially. I think it's good to sort of have a few positive things to take away from it versus harboring or turning things negative. I think number one thing is just not to turn these feelings into hate for yourself or for anyone else around you. All right, cool, bro. I'm gonna hang up now.
All right.
And
Thanks for having
yeah,
me. That's fun.
yeah, cool.